Hello, this is Sandman 99. Welcome back to the Spectacle Island Gun Club and Shooting Range. Now, I have to say I learned a lot about how guns and gun barrels and the accuracy of weapons works and the general behavior by constructing this shooting range and then just shooting at this wall. And one of the things I noticed is that the two-shot legendary effect behaves very strangely. It actually changes the trajectory characteristics of any weapon that has the two-shot legendary attached. And I'm going to demonstrate this. So, first weapon, I'm going to fire several weapons at this wall, and you'll be able to see the bullet marks that these weapons make. And the first weapon I'm going to shoot is called Overseer's Guardian. It is a two-shot legendary combat rifle that you can get at Vault 81. And this particular one has a long barrel on it. And we're shooting at a range of 35 yards. And so basically what the two-shot legendary does is it doesn't double your damage or anything like that. What it actually does is it causes your gun to fire one extra projectile each time you pull the trigger. So for Overseer's Guardian here, every time I pull the trigger with a semi-automatic receiver on it, instead of firing one bullet, it will fire two. And you can see by the targeting reticle there that if this actually has a spread similar to a shotgun. And it's pretty rough, actually, when you think about it. So what I noticed first of all is that any weapon with a two-shot legendary on it, if you aim down the sights or through a scope and fire, it'll make a single bullet hole. Both bullets go into the same spot, basically, which is okay. You know, if you wanted to make this into a sniper weapon, you'll make it into a pretty effective sniper weapon, getting a lot of extra damage per shot because you'll fire two projectiles into the same spot. But if you're at, we'll call this medium range, and you're in the middle of a gun battle and you're dodging enemies and trying to find your way around through obstacles and that kind of thing, I like to use third person in situations like that because it helps me keep track of where multiple enemies are a little easier. Gives me a wider field of vision than first person does. And it also lets me see things that I can't see. For example, I'm standing against this railing right now and I can't see it unless I look right down like this. But if I'm in third person, well, I can still kind of keep an eye on where everybody is and I can notice obstacles like that. So if I'm running and dodging and I suddenly run into something, well, at least I won't be completely disoriented. I'll know that there's something there and I have to either jump over it or move around it or something. But anyway, I noticed that there was quite a difference in behavior with these guns between three different targeting modes. So the first targeting mode is looking down the sights, which is very accurate. The second targeting mode is aiming in third person, and as you can see, I have a dot. I put the dot where I want to aim, and I pull the trigger, and you'll notice that I made two bullet holes there. One, and they're spaced roughly equally apart on either side of where I was aiming. And that's a fairly large spread. Like if I were firing at a man-sized target, and the center of the target was where I put the green dot, I probably would have missed with both bullets from a range of 35 yards. So that's pretty widespread. And if I zoom out and hip fire with this gun, well, I might as well not bother because look at how big the spread is here. If I aim at this panel, even if I aim at the center of this panel, I likely won't hit the panel with either of the two bullets I fire. And I didn't. You can see one bullet struck the sort of roofway up there, and I can't really tell from here where the other bullet went. It may have missed the wall entirely or possibly hit in an area out of my line of vision. But I also noticed we'll switch out for a short combat rifle that does not have the two-shot legendary, and you'll notice that the targeting reticle is much tighter. And I mean, obviously a short-barreled gun, according to the lore, is more accurate hip firing than a long-barreled gun, but the logic seems to be kind of reversed here, because what they did is they basically made the spread of projectiles coming out of a long barrel much, much wider than the projectiles coming out of a short barrel, which is kind of goes against logic, because you would expect that a short barrel, you know, in the case of, for example, a shotgun, a short barrel would spread a lot more than a long barrel would. But it seems to be in reverse when you're talking about rifles particularly, and pistols. And so now we have a couple of other ones. We have Sam's 45 automatic, which has also got the two-shot legendary on it. It's a 10mm pistol. And we'll just shoot at the next row down here. And you'll notice that looking through the sights, well, actually the 10mm pistol is a lot less accurate looking through the sights. The Overseer's Guardian made a single hole. You can see that looking through the sights at 35 yards here, I actually put two holes pretty wide apart. But if we aim in third person now, you'll notice that it still makes two holes pretty wide apart. And if we try hip shooting with this gun, well, again, two holes pretty wide apart. Roughly same spaced for all three. So the two-shot doesn't seem to affect pistols as much as it does rifles, but it still does have an effect. It basically creates a two-projectile shotgun type of effect, which means that your two-shot legendary is not really going to give you the extra damage advertised unless you're standing at very close range. So if we move up here, and we'll stand at the closest range possible, which here is 7 yards. And as you can see now, if I fire at 7 yards, I still have two holes, two separate holes, although I'll be able to hit the same target with that. But if I hip shoot, now, it looks like they're spaced about the same. So at 7 yards, I will very likely hit the same target with both bullets. But, again, if we move back to 14 yards, well, suddenly now, I don't know, it looks like it's still somewhat effective, although it looks like I missed with one bullet there when I was aiming there. And when I aim down the sights, well, it looks like the spacing is a little bit narrower than at, longer range there, at 35 yards. But still, it's kind of strange, and it's almost like the two-shot legendary overwrites the barrel characteristics of various weapons that it may be attached to. And I found this out because in another mod, RecV5X and I created a shotgun. And basically what this is it's a pipe shotgun. It's based on a sort of very loosely real-life bolt-action shotgun that fires buckshot, but it's a smaller bore than a 12 gauge, so it actually only fires 4 pellets per shot rather than 8, which is the standard, and it does somewhat less damage. You have to take the damage characteristics shown in this picture with a little bit of a grain of salt, because this character has max perks in pretty well every weapon type. So the damage figure there is going to be basically at very late end game. That's the kind of damage that this gun does. It sort of fits in between the 308 pipe gun and the 50 caliber receiver on the pipe gun. It does a little more damage than the 308 and a little less damage than the 50 caliber receiver does. Anyways, we designed this shotgun so that it would have a pretty tight spread compared to the other shotgun types, the double-barreled shotgun and the combat shotgun. And there was a couple of reasons for this. We wanted to make a little bit more accurate distance weapon. So as you can see here, we fire, and from this range, which is pretty close, 14 yards, well, it basically almost sends all 4 pellets into the same hole. So it's a very tight spread, and it was intended to be an early game helper to, basically provide you with ammunition that you can use in a weapon similar to a 308 bolt action pipe gun before 308 ammunition is really commonly available. So if we fire here in third person, oh yes, this gun only holds 3 shells too. You can see that at 35 yards we've got a little bit of spread there. And if you hip shoot with it, well, basically the spread doesn't really change. And if you fire through the scope, again, the spread doesn't really change. It's about the same. So at 35 yards, this is actually a pretty hard-hitting weapon. But I sort of was digressing because I had to explain this a little bit. But now I also have one of these guns that has the two-shot effect on it. And look at the difference. There's going to be a huge difference in spread here. So when I aim it even through the sights, well, you can see that the spread is now massive. So what's happened, there's one hole there, one there, one there, one there, and the two-shot effect would cause this gun to fire actually 5 pellets instead of 4. And I'm not sure, oh, there's the 5th pellet. So at 35 yards, I didn't even, hit what I was aiming at all, and spread all those 5 pellets across basically an area the size of an entire wall panel. And that is as a result of the two-shot legendary effect, which actually tinkers with the trajectory that projectiles leave the end of your gun by. So it actually overwrites the characteristics, the non-legendary characteristics of your gun, replacing it with the values given for the barrel accuracy settings in the two-shot legendary. So what I did is I tinkered with the two-shot legendary effect a little bit in the creation kit and tried to get it to the point where it was actually not completely overwriting the characteristics of the guns without the two-shot effect. And so we're going to pause for a moment here while I activate the mod, and then we'll be able to see what the difference is that it made. Okay, we're back, and I have activated our mod, and now we'll be able to have a look at how the behavior changed. So we'll go back to our original 35-yard range here, and we'll have a look at our first shots that we fired. So basically this panel here is the first few shots that we fired with the Overseer's Guardian. This pairing on the left was aiming in third person, and the pairing on the right was hip shooting. So now we're going to do the same thing over here in the next panel over. So aiming in third person, and you can see that we got almost 2 of those little red boxes on the targeting thing wide here. So that didn't really change too much. Okay, but it did kind of even things up, hip shooting and third person aiming. And of course, if you aim through the scope, you basically make a single hole. So you don't really see a lot of difference with the long-barreled rifle, and that's because the long-barreled rifle has very bad characteristics for third-person aiming and shooting down the hip firing anyway. So now we'll have a look at what we did with the pistol. And so we'll aim here in third person, and look at how tight that grouping is now at 35 yards. And if we hip fire with it, you'll notice that the targeting reticle is quite a bit smaller too. And you get a pretty close grouping there now too. So chances are pretty good that at this range I will hit a human-sized target with both bullets. And of course, if we fire through the sights, well, guess what? Firing through the sights is a lot tighter as well. So it did seem to tighten things up a little. But the most dramatic difference that we're going to notice is going to be with the bolt-action shotgun. So we're going to get a couple of those out. Here again. So here's our non-legendary bolt-action shotgun. We got a clean panel there, so we'll aim just in third person and shoot there. And we get a spread about like that. So we switch to double shot now. And we'll just aim on the other side. And we get about the same spread at the same range. Which more or less proves that the two-shot legendary does in fact overwrite the characteristics of the weapon that it is attached to. So that's something to understand and realize. Oh yeah, these were the first 10mm shots. So that's something that a person needs to realize when you're using a weapon that has the two-shot legendary effect. But anyway, as you can see, third person, there's a bit of variance because there is a certain amount of random factor to this. Right? But as you can see, now, I can at least hit with one out of the two bullets. And if I hip fire, here we'll just start off aiming at the center of that. Well, it looks like I probably hit the guy with one bullet. Have another look again here. Or maybe not. Looks like the spread is still pretty wide. But just to show you what the difference is, we'll have another look at our short combat rifle here. And you'll notice the difference in the spread. So what I'm going to do here real quick is I'm going to take Overseer's Guardian back to the workbench. And I'm going to put a short barrel on it. Just so that we can see how it behaves. And again, I think that it's kind of weird that they decided that in the game design that a long barrel would be less accurate than a short barrel. I guess maybe they couldn't think of another way to simulate hip shooting being less accurate than aiming down the sights. I don't know. But it ended up with an effect that's kind of backwards. So we'll go with putting a short barrel on Overseer's Guardian. And then we'll rush back down to the targeting range here again. And take a couple of shots just for comparison's sake. And back to our 35 yards. Okay, you'll notice that the targeting reticle is much tighter now. So if we aim in third person, well, the result you get is actually kind of similar to what you get from the 10mm pistol at this range. And if we hip shoot, again, you still have a bit of a spread, but it's a little bit wider than third person aiming is. But you're still probably going to hit the same target with both bullets. Probably. It kind of depends. There's a bit of a random factor in this too. So, but interestingly enough, with the short barrel, you'll notice that aiming down the sights now, I'm making two separate holes. So the short barrel, when you aim down the sights, is less accurate than the long barrel, which kind of makes sense. But when they designed the hip shooting and third-person aiming, the short barrel is actually more accurate than the long barrel is. You get less spread, less bullet drift by quite a lot. And actually I have another weapon here that is very similar that we can shoot a couple of shots with. It's a two-shot advanced radium rifle. So anyway, and it has characteristics that's very similar to the combat rifle. So this radium rifle has a long barrel on it. And as you can see, you get a fairly wide spread, you know, in third person. And if we compare Overseer's Guardian now to that, with the short barrel, you'll notice that I got one hole, two holes there. So the spread is probably half of what the long barrel is at this range. And you would think that the long barrel would have the tighter spread and the short barrel would have the wider spread, but like I said, it's the logic that was used to try and adjust the accuracy, I suppose, to make hip shooting less accurate with long-barreled weapons and more accurate with short-barreled weapons. But it ended up with a bit of a discrepancy. So, and again, now if we compare those to our 10mm pistol, the same range, aiming in third person, well, you'll notice that you got a couple of pretty tight grouping there. Again, like two holes that are almost right on top of each other. So anyway, as far as I can tell, the two-shot legendary will give you big bang for your buck if you're a sniper using a long-barreled weapon and you aim down the sights in first person. But if you are hip shooting with a two-shot legendary weapon, even if it's a pistol, it's probably not going to be any more effective than your regular, plain old, ordinary, regular pistol, because half the bullets that you shoot will miss. Unless you are at point-blank range, basically. I guess if you're, say, at a range of 10 yards or less, well then, you know, even Overseer's Guardian here, if you're hip shooting with it, well, yeah, and if you pull the trigger rapidly like this and just spray and pray, well then, I guess you're probably going to get more bullets into your target than not. But still, it is not, it does not work the way that I had expected it to. I would have rather that it would put two bullets into the same hole, basically. But it doesn't work that way. And I guess it was not designed to work that way. So anyway, we'll shoot another shot here with double shot, which, you know, shotguns are handled a little bit differently than regular guns are too, when they have the two-shot legendary, because it doesn't actually double the number of shots. It basically just causes the gun to fire one extra projectile. So we'll go back to basically Rec V5X and I designed the bolt-action shotgun to be a fairly effective weapon out to about 70 yards. Because, like I said, we wanted it to fill that niche. There you see a grouping of 5 pellets, right, at 70 yards. So At 70 yards, I might have missed with one pellet there, but most of the pellets would hit. Anything closer than 70 yards, and this weapon will, you'll get most of your pellets hitting at a single target. So, anyway, and like I said, I was demonstrating this shotgun mostly to show that it definitely, the two-shot legendary effect overwrites the barrel trajectory parameters for any gun that that legendary effect is attached to. So what I did was I basically just tweaked that legendary effect in the creation kit so that it does not have any effect. So any spread, any bullet trajectory differences that you see are as a result of the vanilla gun, or in the case of this shotgun, the way that the barrels in the actual gun were designed. So, anyway, I hope that you found that educational and informative. And maybe you might want to try using my mod, which will, to a certain extent, improve the performance of weapons that have the two-shot effect without having to aim in first person down the sights. So, anyway, I am Sandman 99, and until next time,